Hello, I'm John Grom, and welcome to our 252nd Right and Left Discussion Forum. We hold our televised discussions twice monthly to demonstrate the value of civil, productive, open-minded political dialogue. Today, our panel will discuss the presidential debates. I hope they'll give their various opinions about whether they were good debates or get anything out of them. But our panel begins today with Bryan Laubaugh, president of R&B Financial Services, followed by Tom Finley, retired VP of Human Resources at Rubbermaid Incorporated. Then Susan Hanlon, member of the Wadsworth City Council and retired Dean of the College of Business at the University of Akron. And finally, Patty Haskins, former member of the Wadsworth City Council and retired member of the faculty of Wadsworth City High School. Seniors at high school, not City High School.
But you also know she was in my class for a year.
Yeah, we've heard that a number of times.
Well, I'm so proud of her.
I know you are, I can tell. Anyway, Bryan, I hope you watched the presidential debates, at least a good part of it. But what is your take on how that debate worked out?
Well, I did watch part of it, about 45 minutes of it. You know, we go to bed earlier in our house because we get up pretty early. And I don't think there's going to be any argument as to who won the debate. Unfortunately, I cannot believe the handlers of Mr. Trump weren't pulling their hair out at so many opportunities to tag the vice president with the failed policies of the Biden-Harris administration. He went off on a tangent with the cats and the dogs in Springfield, Ohio, that for me was just ridiculous. It plays into that conspiracy thing.
You're fun.
He could have easily said the Biden-Harris policies in immigration has flooded the town of Springfield, Ohio, with anywhere from 10 to 14,000 Haitians over the last 3.5 years. This is a city of 58,000, and could have gone on and explained why it's not working. But he decided to talk about cats and ducks disappearing off the streets of Springfield. I just, for the life of me, I just can't imagine that a high school debater with 2 hours worth of prep could have done a much better job than Mr. Trump. Now, that's not saying much for the vice president. She was very polished. She hit her marks. And several of the commentators online sort of cast her as a very good actor. You know, she said the things that she had to say. She baited the guy. He fell for it. So if you were scoring this like a boxing match, you know, she obviously took most of the rounds. I don't think there was any round that Mr. Trump won at all with his rambling answers. You know, that might work at a small gathering of people or his large events that he has, you know, but on a debate stage, the guy is a brawler. He's not a debater. I don't even know why they agreed to another debate. He can't remember facts that are so blatant. I mean, on the inflation questions, on the immigration questions. Now, there has been a little bit of a brouhaha in that the moderators fact-checked him several times. And, you know, just from what I watched, the 45 minutes that I watched, he was fact-checked several times on some of his statements. And because I didn't watch the whole debate, did they ever fact-check the vice president?
No.
And that would be one of the things that I would bring up. I would not call her by her first name. She would be Vice President Harris, because I would have linked her with the Biden-Harris. She's part of the administration, and that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to distance her from the Biden administration and their failed policies. And that was probably one of the simplest things that Donald Trump could do, but he can't help himself. I think most of us on the right are so frustrated with the guy. If he would just stick with some of the policies and some of the things that people have been living through, I mean, he could have talked about eggs are now $3 and what? A dozen, when 3.5 years ago, they were $1 something a dozen. He could have talked about so many things, but he has no discipline whatsoever. And I just, I wanted to go to bed with hair. I was pulling out my hair because anybody could have hit some of those softballs out of the park.
Yeah.
With standard answers that people have been living through. I mean, I just, for the life of me, I just don't get it. I'm sort of glad he canceled this last debate. I don't think he got any sort of bump. Now, there are people out there that are arguing, well, that's just him. That's what people love about him. He's so unpolished. He's so unscripted. He's this, that, or the other. He came off like just rambling. One of the, what was it? Jake Tapper said he was a living commercial for 4chan.
For what?
For 4chan. It's that internet thing where all the conspiracies go around, aliens and all that kind of stuff. But the many opportunities that he had, I just thought, oh, you're going to hit that out of the park. Oh, this is Tita. I mean, just looking at at what we've gone through almost in the last 4 years with Biden and Harris, I don't see how he could have walked away just sort of a neutral thing, but he couldn't even do that. So I was thoroughly disappointed in his performance. I didn't get really anything out of it. Some of the answers that the vice president gave were just out there. I don't, the joy and the hope and the hopey feely stuff. He could have tagged her with the policies, immigration policies, inflation, the Inflation Reduction Act that she signed. She was the deciding vote in the Senate. He could have tagged her with that. Yeah. None of that. He missed an opportunity to really hurt her campaign. She came away unscathed, and she clearly won.
I think he does what feels good at the moment and doesn't listen to anyone else. I would hate to be in a
no. So,
Tom, what are your thoughts? Tom?
Yes. I was just thinking, excuse me for labeling myself as this, but I've been a behavioral scientist more than I've been a teacher all my life. And it has served me well in terms of making good living and all that and on and on. However, when I look at politicians and the one we have up now, Donald Trump is not fit to be president of the United States. And here's why he's not. He is not a logical thinker in a position that needs logical thinking. And if you don't need any other reason for him not being a good candidate, there it is. Imagine we want to put this kind of person in a powerful position like President of the United States who can't think logically. That's my bottom line on it.
To his component. Compared to his opponent, the vice president.
Well, if I compare, she's a very logical thinker. From what I've seen so far.
Okay.
But to me, it's one of the key characteristics for the presidency of the United States.
Yeah. Well, Susan?
So I'm going to, just to make this interesting, I'm going to push back a little bit and go a little bit different direction. So I watched most of it the first, the night they did it. And I walked away with basically the same impression that Bryan did. But then I sat down, because I have to admit I fell asleep during some of it. So then I sat down this week and, a couple of different, and watched it again and took notes. And when I watched it again, I didn't think Trump did as badly as I thought he did the first time. And a couple reasons. One is her facts were his wrong statements were outlandish. I mean, they were just so, like saying we have had something like 20 million immigrants and it's like 4 million, and then, eating the pets thing, and just his were outlandish. Hers were subtle, but she said a lot of wrong things. She had a lot of very inaccurate things. First of all, when she started right off with he's going to have a sales tax. He's not going to have a sales tax. He's proposing tariffs. And then the idea that, oh, it's going to cost, whatever group she cited, $4,000. There's no way with tariffs like that to accurately estimate how much it's going to cost to anybody. I mean, it all depends on what you buy and blah, blah, blah. And then interesting enough, the moderator repeated that. He repeated that there will be a $4,000, damage because of the sales tax. So she also said, that Trump left them with the worst unemployment ever. And that wasn't accurate. I mean, it was high, but it was not the worst ever. She was wrong about deficits. Trump did not have the highest deficit. And then the whole thing went with abortion, and they talked about Roe versus Wade. I don't know why anybody keeps saying, including him, because he wants to take credit for it, that he repealed it. He didn't repeal it. The Supreme Court repealed it. And yes, he appointed the Supreme Court judges that did it, but he did not do it. And this whole thing of there being Trump bans. I mean, in regards to abortion, first of all, I wish it was not a campaign issue. I don't think it is a campaign issue. And I do agree with him when he said, why are we talking about this? It's solved. It's gone back to the states. And that was the legal question. Now, there's a moral question, obviously, but it's not the role of the government to decide the moral question. But the legal constitutional question, yes, it should have gone back to the states. It's back to the states. And every state, some are voting on it. Some are, their legislatures are doing their thing, but it's back at the state level. And so it's done. Like, quit talking about it. But, she continued. She also, her comments about monitors of pregnancy in Project 2025, that is such an exaggeration. It's merely, there's a proposal. Now, I haven't read Project 2025, but, there's some kind of proposal about keeping track of the number of abortions more, like a different way to keep track of them. And so, and then I agree. I didn't read it, but I thought that what Bryan said about what people have said online, that she was a very good actor. I was struggling with what was bugging me about her demeanor. And what it was she was overcoached to just look superior. And she had a constant smirk on her face that if you really sat and watched it, got real annoying and became very fake because she overused it. So, I think she helped herself. Nothing is going to hurt Trump. I mean, I'm going to go back to that statement he made years ago. I can stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and people would still vote for me. So I think the people that are going to vote for him, it didn't do anything. They're still going to vote for him. I think what happened was,
You don't know my wife.
Pardon me?
You don't know my wife.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think that the people that have the flags out, all those people, they're still going to vote for him. What I think she did, she made it easier for someone who does not want to vote for him, but doesn't want to vote for her. She made it easier to vote for her.
That's interesting. Patty, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I watched the whole debate. I'm kind of a policy wonk and politics wonk when it comes to these kind of things. And I am really glad that it was shown. I think over 60 million viewers watched it, which is excellent, I think. It was the top rated program, I think, after the Super Bowl this past year. So at least we know that the country is interested in this. So I'm glad they had the debate. I thought it was excellent in that we did get to see both candidates give different ideas on different subjects and different topics. And even though they rarely, and this is probably my biggest bug, they rarely actually answer the question,
Right.
or even come close to answering the question. At least they're putting policies out there that we can listen to and agree to or not agree to. I know that it was, the comment was made that about the corrections. Yeah, yes, they did correct Trump, but it was because he said things that were just so outlandish.
But she said things that were wrong.
Well, I don't think they were as outlandish. I mean, let's look at what he said. I mean, first of all, he said that in states that there are states that allow people to abort the baby after it's born. In other words, kill it. And that's not true. And, the sad part is Trump has the habit of making these outlandish comments. And then he says them over and over and over again until his supporters believe him. Because why else wouldn't he say it? I mean, that's ridiculous. I think you have to stop this when he starts it. The comment about eating the dogs and the cats. Actually, the whole situation in Springfield has gone out of hand because, as admitted by J.D. Vance, they created a story just to get attention. I mean, the fact that the immigrant infusion into Springfield came as a part of a public outreach for people to come into the community and revitalize it. Quite 5, 6, 10 years ago, Springfield was losing people. They were moving out. Businesses were moving out. And they felt with the influx of the immigrant population that they could improve that community. And that's what they've done. The fact that they're talking about the dogs and cats, that came from a Facebook post, and the writer of it has already come out and said that it was false, that she had never heard any of this. But he gets up there and says it's true. And then when confronted by and told that, we've reached out to the managers in Springfield and they do not agree with this, he insists that, well, yeah, but I heard somebody say it on TV, so it must be true. No, that's not how we get our information. Perhaps somebody, he should have listened to Governor DeWine, who just came out, it was 2 days ago, and stated that this whole thing was a farce. But here we have Trump still pushing for this, along with J.D. Vance. And, now they're planning, Vivek Ramaswamy is going to be in Springfield this evening, I think, for a town hall to discuss the problems. And Trump is thinking about going there. They're making an issue about something that doesn't exist. And it's really sad to see this.
But we do have an immigration problem.
Yeah, we have an
Everybody
immigration
agreed.
problem, but you do not correct it by stating
Right.
false.
And I think I
only
see
hurts
that.
it, but that's.
But the point is that he could have said maybe Springfield was looking to immigrate, but they didn't look for 14,000 Haitians over the last 4 years.
Those 14,000 Haitians, by the way, are legal immigrants that came in on a special program. So they
came in on a special program that only lasts for 2 years. Some of them have been there 3 years.
They are legal immigrants, and it's wrong to say that. One other thing, though, that I was wanted to mention is the fact that, and the thing that still amazes me, he's still, and we saw this, he still refuses to accept that he lost the election. He was asked about, and I had actually seen the interview where he said that he said, we lost the election by just a small fraction or something. And I remember watching it. He was questioning. He goes, well, did I say that? Yeah, you said that. And then he goes on to still say that he didn't lose the election.
But I have a question. Why are people so easily dismissing her inaccuracies? I mean,
Right.
what's wrong? If she's going to state statistics, which is fine, why not have them correct?
Well, actually, I've
She's
seen that
saying the wrong
$4,000
things.
figure, and I do
Right.
believe it is correct.
What?
So, and he had every opportunity to correct on any of the statistics.
And that's
No,
the
but-
point.
And that's the point, and he didn't, because he didn't prepare, because
Well, she
he
didn't
thought,
correct him
I
either. She
don't
let the
have to.
moderators do
Yeah,
it.
well, they
She
let her
didn't
off
do
the
it.
hook
what?
when there were some easy. There could have been some easy fact checks, like, well, wait a second,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, he
This
could have
is
been
really
fact
what the
checked on
fact
practically everything that he said throughout the night. I mean, he has
No.
the biggest crowds. He is the greatest president in history.
Okay, what about what about Afghanistan? She refused to take any blame for that at all. And that is one thing I think there's pretty universal agreement. You know, not knowing if anybody else could have done any better, but it was done very poorly. A lot of people lost their lives that, you know, probably didn't need to. And
well,
you know,
I agree.
I thought his explanation about, you know, the whole idea that if Iran would have been left as weak as they were, a lot of this would not have happened because they funded it. So,
Well,
I mean, you know,
I
I just
agree.
don't understand
I
why
agree,
she's
Susan.
getting such a softball on this.
I
Yeah.
agree that yes, you're absolutely right. Afghan was in, and there's I can go back and talk about the policies that Trump had before, but I won't. The thing is, though, it was Biden who was president.
Well,
it was not
It's an
Kamala Harris.
administration. Wait.
It's the administration.
Wait.
To
We
tell
can't
me
have
that the
it
vice
both ways.
president.
Right.
You
No,
cannot
I'm not
have it
trying
both
to
ways.
have it both
I'm
ways.
sorry.
I
can't
am
have it
not
both
trying
ways.
to have it both
That's what
ways.
he could have said.
She can't get the credibility of being vice president and not
Yeah,
take the blame.
You can't do this. And this has been all over social media. You
Yeah.
cannot divorce yourself from 4 years, 3.5, almost 4 years of being the vice president of the United States. Because you know darn well that if it was the vice president and a Republican running, they would have hung that administration around his neck, her neck, whoever, and beat him up every day about it.
And the
we're
whole-
not seeing
And
The
they
whole
may
thing-
have.
we're not seeing
I'm
that
just
at all.
saying, I don't think that that's the right thing to do. It was not her administration. It is Biden's. Just as Mike Pence doesn't speak for Donald
Yeah.
Trump. Now,
Okay,
They
well
did it to
then-
Dan Quayle. They did it to Dan Quayle. Remember, Dan Quayle ran for president,
Dan Quayle had his own problems.
and they
for the
hung
things he said.
the Bush administration around his neck, and they beat him up every day for
Well,
every
and then
misstep.
like she continues to say that, oh, she you know, that she's changed her mind on fracking. That's inaccurate too, because in that what is it, the Inflation Recovery Act, the thing that she's talking about, I cast the vote, you know, the deciding vote, that's about drilling for oil, that like offshore drilling.
Yeah,
That is not about fracking. And when you read the details of that, that was that guy from West Virginia put in, you know, Joe, let's just say Mannion. Yeah, he's the one that put
Manchin.
in the little, you know, the clause that, okay, if we're gonna do this, then they have to do that. And as it turns out, even with that, they are allowing the minimum number of leases to drill oil that they legally can. Like that was, it wasn't about fracking. I don't know how it got to be characterized as being about fracking. So who
I
knows
think
how
the
she feels
difference
about
that she has
fracking?
made
I
is
don't know.
from when she had originally said she was going to stop all fracking, and that was
Right.
back in 2019. Stop it. She has not made any attempt to stop fracking in the state
We
of
don't
Pennsylvania since then.
know, because that the thing she keeps quoting is not fracking. It's oil drilling. It's not.
Well,
fracking.
I've not heard her make that comment from that standpoint.
Yes,
So,
that's how she says That's why she's getting all this grief is, oh, you're flip-flopping because you're the one that cast the vote that had the piece, that had something in it that was going to protect fracking. And it's not fracking.
In a couple of minutes that we've got left, I'd like to hear some opinions about so-called Project 25 that they keep hanging around Trump's neck. It was actually a Heritage Foundation project. And Trump said he's never even read it.
Right.
I have seen, well, first of all, the majority of the authors are people that have worked with Trump or have, been in his office on his campaign and so forth. That does not necessarily tie it to him. I did see an interview with one of them, and I wish I could remember the name of the gentleman, but I can't, where he stated that while developing Project 2025, they checked with Trump about where he wanted to go and what his policies are. Now, he has claimed that he knows nothing about it, doesn't know what's in it. I find that hard to believe that he doesn't know anything that's in it. But just because he claims he doesn't have anything to do with it, I really, very honestly don't think that that's the case. And that the Heritage Foundation, which has been very influential as far as Trump is concerned, has a great deal of influence over him. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well,
no, go ahead.
You could say the same thing about the think tanks that are that support, the vice president and the Biden administration. This whole fracking thing. She did the gun thing. She was in an interview. She said there was going to be a mandatory buyback. And that was like a month and a half ago. And now she sits up there and she says, I've got a gun. And it's like, and my vice president has a gun and we hunt and all that kind of stuff. I don't think, I'm not sure if she really hunts. She might have a gun.
She's never said she hunts. She just says she owns
I know,
a gun.
but the fact of the matter is,
Yeah,
it was just one of those things where it was so easy. The next day, they've even got, maybe the positive thing for Donald Trump is there have been a ton of memes about her performance and the things that she said. They put up a split screen a month ago. There will be a mandatory buyback.
Okay.
And yada, yada, yada. Oh, I promise fracking is gone.
We're going to have to sign off now. We can discuss this in another minute, but it's been a good discussion, and we'll talk about it in a second, Tom. So long, folks. See you in 2 weeks.
Take care.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.